Hi, I'm Brian LaRosa with LaRosa's Trains on Facebook, and today I'm going to review and run Lionel's famous post-war Santa Fe F3 AA diesel set. I'm going to start off with a little history of the real-life F3 diesel and the post-war model of it. The real-life F3 diesel was manufactured by General Motors Electromotive Division, which was later called EMD. And the Santa Fe F3 diesel was used to head this famous train named the Super Chief. And the Super Chief was on a trip between Chicago, Illinois to Los Angeles, California in the late 40s and early 50s. Lionel first offered the Santa Fe F3 diesel in the 1948 catalog, and it was so popular that Lionel continued to make this engine for the next 18 years, up until 1966. Now, Lionel also offered the F3 diesel in the New York Central paint scheme, but Lionel continued to make it for much fewer years than the more popular Santa Fe F3 diesel. Although the New York Central F3 diesel might not be as popular as the Santa Fe version, I think the Santa Fe diesel is considered to be one of Lionel's most iconic engines in the history of Lionel. The set I have is identified as an AA diesel consist. Now, if you don't know what AA means, I'll explain really quick on what this refers to. When it comes to cab unit diesel sets, you'll hear something like an AA like you see here, an ABA, or even an ABBA. These identifications refer to the diesel consists, which include these two types of units, called the A unit and another one called a B unit. Now, an A unit is the main power of any diesel set that features a normal cab where the engineer would normally sit in. And now both these engines in the set are A units, and so therefore this is identified as an AA. Now, a B unit is another type of unit that appears to have no cab where the engineer would normally sit in. And the main reason real railroads use B units was because they were cheaper to operate and they provide extra power to any diesel set. Now, obviously I don't have a B unit in this set, but if you add a B unit in the middle of the twin A units, then this would be identified as an ABA. If you add another B unit in between, then this would be identified as an ABBA. So I hope this is helpful to you. Okay, let's go over some of the basic features on this engine. I'm not doing a fully detailed review on this engine, mainly because I don't normally collect realistic and prototypical O-scale models. Now, obviously, this engine is not meant to be a super realistic model of the real F3 diesel, because I think most poster engines were not necessarily super realistic. Now, I found this engine at this one local train store in Mount Airy, Maryland named Train Depot, which is where I normally buy trains from. And when I got to the Train Depot, it was sitting on the shelf for a long time. And I think this is not a reissue of it. It's actually an all-original post-war diesel. So I'm just going to go over some of the important features on this engine. So I hope you enjoy this video. This set features one powered unit on the front and one non-powered unit on the back. And both engines are almost entirely made of die-cast metal, because I think most post-war engines are made of die-cast metal as well. Now, the Now the set has to run on any conventional track like I have, because all post-war engines are definitely conventionally powered. Now I have two loops on my layout. The outer loop is for command controlled engines, and the inner loop is for conventional engines only. So I'm running this engine on the inner loop of track where it's sitting on. Here we are at the front of the engine. Now this engine has interior lighting, with that being the lighted cab interior and operating headlight. And you got this operating coupler here. Now this requires a special 5-rail track section with a remote control included, because underneath the engine you'll notice that there's a special device that works with the 5-rail track section, and when you activate the 5-rail track section with a remote control, this device receives the signal and it will fire the coupler here. Now the problem is that I don't have the 5-rail track section for this engine, but I can actually use couplers from any other piece of the rolling stock, so that I could easily hook this engine to other freight cars. To better illustrate what I'm talking about, I'm going to use a Lionel boxcar to hook it up to the engine. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to throw the coupler, and then I'm going to couple it to the engine. Like that. It's pretty easy. And when I want to uncouple it, it's just as easy as that. So that way I'll couple the cars very easy by using their own couplers instead of using the coupler from the engine. Here's a look at the die-cast metal chassis, and one special feature that you'll notice on the wheels is called magnet traction. And the way it works is that the wheels are actually magnetic to the rails. So when I lift the engine up and use a magnet, you can tell that the wheels are magnetic. Just like that. And magnet traction is used to prevent the trains from flying off if they're going way too fast. Another thing you'll see underneath the engine, there's a switch that controls the reversing unit. So when I lift the engine up again, you can see that this switch is in the on position for the reversing unit, but if I wanted to turn the reversing unit off, you have to turn it off by going this way, like that. On, off. On, off. Another feature in this engine is the operating horn, and the way it works is that there's a buzzer inside the engine, and when you activate the horn on your transformer, it will play the sound of the horn by using the buzzer. Now one thing that's required for the buzzer to work is one D-cell battery. To install the D-cell battery inside the engine, you have to turn the engine over, and you'll notice that there's a panel here to get access to the battery compartment. And to get access to that, you have to undo the screw, and this reveals the battery compartment. And now you put the battery in, Then you close the panel. And then you tighten the screw back in like that. Now, even though this engine has an operating horn, when I tested the operating horn, something was not working right. Because when I activate the horn on the transformer, the buzzer sounded really awful, and I couldn't hear a single pitch from the horn. And so what I've done to the engine is that I took the battery out, and it feels very hot. So I'm guessing there must have been a short circuit in the battery, and perhaps I must have overloaded too much power to the track. And so it's much better for me to run the engine without the battery so that it will work better. Here's a look in the rear of each unit, and you'll notice that there are two dummy couplers that have to be coupled to each other. And it's recommended that you should run the engine with each end coupled to each other. And so to couple that, you have to do another way. To carefully couple it to each other. Just like that. The paint job on this engine is really beautiful with the classic war bonnet paint scheme. Now, the interesting thing about the paint scheme is that the sample of this model was actually painted in this unique red and black paint scheme, but it was never ever made. However, Lionel is going to offer this unique red and black version that was never made in 1948, and I think it was recently offered in the 2013 Volume 1 catalog. You can even see legible builder's plates in both units, the GM for General Motors, and you can even see this unique writing built by Lionel. Now, one little problem with these engines is that there are a few paint problems in the rear unit, but it's not a big deal. I still think this paint job is really wonderful. The last thing I'm going to tell you before I power this engine up is that when you start running this engine, you'll hear this noise from the AC motor, and that's normal for any post-war engine. And when you're done running the engine for a while, the engine might feel a little hot, and that's also normal for any post-war engine. So let's start running this right now. Okay, we got track power now, and I've turned off the reversing unit on the engine so it'll be easier for me to run the train. So let's start moving it. Okay, that about wraps up this review. This is a really beautiful engine. Now, if you're interested in finding the these Postwar F3 diesels, I would suggest to go to your local Lionel dealer to find out more about the latest reissues of this F3 diesel. Now, if you're interested in purchasing the black and red version of the Santa Fe that was never made, the AA set retails for almost $500, although you'll probably get them for a little cheaper if you go through a good Lionel dealer. So this engine's really fun, and I'm happy to have Postwar fun on my layout. And like I said earlier, this is considered to be one of Lionel's most iconic engines. So anyway, I'm Brian LaRosa, and I will see you next time.